This is probably the craziest shit you'll hear today. Let me back up for a second. In 2021, Joe Biden signed the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. It rolled out in phases, but 2 years later, in 2023, it came time to talk about their Internet for All plan. The US was going to spend $42 billion to make internet access universal, particularly as it related to rural communities. That $42 billion was going to be dispersed among companies like Verizon, Comcast, Charter Communications, and AT&T. But now something strange is happening. Trump and the MAGA Republicans are now trying to give Elon Musk the $42.5 billion so that he can use his Starlink satellites to be able to give rural areas in this country internet access. Now, at face value, this seems to be a money grab. The fact that Elon Musk is hacking the Treasury Department and federal agencies to loot our money to find $4.5 trillion to give tax cuts to the ultra wealthy, while he says we have to cut entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education funding, and food stamps, all the while making sure that he's securing billions of dollars of taxpayer money for himself, is a problem, but not the biggest problem here. And this is where the shit gets dark real quick. Experts say satellite internet is more controllable due to its centralized infrastructure. This enables censorship and surveillance as service providers and authorities can more easily monitor, block, and filter content. Now, mind you, that's satellite internet as opposed to traditional internet infrastructure, which relies on decentralized network of subsea cables and terrestrial networks managed by many stakeholders with thousands of data exchange points. Basically, satellite internet is more controllable and more susceptible to censorship. And when one person can control what is censored because he's the owner of the company and the satellites, we got a fucking problem. It gets even darker when you know that there are scientific and psychological journals that explain the fact that the lower educational attainment that you have, the more susceptible to misinformation you are. It gets even darker when you know that the counties with the lowest educational attainment were concentrated in rural areas, meaning people in rural areas are most susceptible to misinformation already because of the lack of their education. And it gets even darker when you realize that this very week, they slashed the Department of Education in half, literally dismantling and making the Department of Education inoperable. And it gets even darker when you realize that the teacher layoffs and the bigger classes due to the lack of education funding coming from the Department of Education that no longer works will hit the GOP base the hardest. And you guessed it, rural areas. They want to keep rural areas uneducated so that they're more susceptible to misinformation. They want to give this man $42.5 billion in taxpayer dollars so that he can give them Starlink satellite internet access that he can control and censor, block, and control any information that is anything anti-Trump, anything anti-MAGA, anything anti-Republican, to contain and end any resistance